There's a trend here. It's not just Tucker. It's not just Tucker. There's a trend coming. And basically, what I align it with, if we look at each person, it's hatred of Jews and siding with this side. And that's basically it. That's how I see it. Yeah, I don't even see it as, because if you're looking at Israel, if it was about Israel, well, Hamas, if you call Hamas a political organisation, one of the articles on their manifesto says the final day of judgment does not come until every Jew is dead. That's on their manifesto. Not every Zionist, not every Israeli, every Jew is dead. So the argument's just done at that point. They're not a political organisation. They're a terrorist, bloodthirsty jihad. They are ISIS. They're ISIS, they're Boko Haram, they're all the same. So I was born in 1982 in a town called Luton Town, which is 30 miles north of London. When I was born, there was one mosque. There's now 45.
Wow.
I've seen the destruction of my hometown. I've seen what happens with open border mass immigration from Islamic nations. I've seen the attack on freedom, the hostility, the general violence, the rapes, the jihad. Just so you understand, children I went to school with went to fight and they died fighting for ISIS. Friends I grew up with have been imprisoned for terrorism. When we talk about terrorists or jihad, I don't talk about something in a faraway field in the Middle East. I talk about the people I queue up next to in the bank, or used to queue up next to into the bank before my bank accounts were closed. We'll get onto that. But I started my activism in 2004, where I held my first protest called Ban the Luton Taliban. And that was after groups in our town, Al-Mujahideen, who years later, become a proscribed terrorist organisation. But they were the main terrorist organisation for Europe. Omar Bakri, Abu Hamza, some of the world's most feared terrorists, were ex-leaders of this organisation. 60% of British Muslims in prison for terrorism are ex-members of this group. Well, this group's head office was in my hometown. So crazily, a young man growing up in Luton, seeing so many problems. I'm a working class English lad. I looked and started going down the rabbit hole and looking into Islam and finding these terrorist groups, and then finding out that they're in my town. They're operating in my town for decades, unchallenged. No one would stop them. The police wouldn't stop them. So fast forward to 2009, Soldiers' Homecoming Parade through my hometown. This same group, hundreds of them come out attacking the armed forces, spitting in their mums' faces, calling them butchers of Basra, baby killers. And that was the final straw for me. I'd seen years of abuse, years of radicalisation, years of extremism. My whole life I'd witnessed it. I'd seen the total isolation, the non-assimilation from the Islamic community. And I was fed up, and I formed an organisation called the English Defence League. It's what I'm known for, really, throughout the UK. The English Defence League was groups of young English men. And I don't claim to sit and polish my halo, just to make it clear from the start. I'm a young man from one of the roughest towns in Britain, but we took the stance that enough was enough. And the rape of our daughters, what many in the world now know as grooming, we knew it was happening. I knew it was happening because it happened to a cousin of mine. That is where groups of Muslim men kidnap, rape, torture, and even murder young English girls. This is such a problem in every town and city in the UK that has an Islamic community. I set up an organisation, and it was never going to be female nurses or doctors that stood up to Islam and the radicalisation on our streets. So it was young men, young British men that come together for a common cause to raise awareness and make sure that these problems could be ignored no longer. When I started the English Defence League at the time, I was a young, successful businessman. I had 2 successful businesses and 7 properties. I then expected Islamic violence. I knew what would come. I'd grown up around Islam. I knew when you try and talk about Islam, they will want to beat you down. I knew that if you have a problem with one Muslim, you may as well declared war on the whole tribe. They all come together as one. So I knew these things growing up, and I expected the threats and the violence and the problems. So I used a pseudonym and I wore a mask at the start. What I wasn't ready for was the full weight of the British state, accompanied by the weapons of their totalitarian state, the judiciary, the media, the full onslaught, the lies, the smears, the attacks. In the first 6 months of leading that organisation, my home was raided by the police 3 times. My businesses were closed. I was held under financial orders where I could only spend £250 a week. They used legislation that they proved, a bit like the Patriots Act, legislation that the Labour government introduced to deal with extremist terrorists. They then turned on us for talking about the terrorists. And at this time, no one knew about grooming gangs or rape gangs. They'd managed to cover it up for decades. There'd been a conspiracy of silence of religious leaders, political leaders, community leaders, police leaders. They'd all conspired to hide this problem, which was Islamic men kidnapping, raping and pillaging their way through our nation. They'd hid it. They'd sacrificed a generation of Britain's daughters at the hands of the multicultural order. They'd allowed it all to happen. And then along come this group of men. And they saw the it was easier to attack us, dismantle us, destroy us, imprison us, break us, than it was to tackle the real elephant in the room that they had imported through government failure, immigration of hostile Islamic nations and supremacist ideologies that do not wish to assimilate or integrate, they wish to dominate. So that's a brief tale of my story. I started in 2009. I led the movement for 4 years. I then left and become an independent citizen journalist, something I'd call a free media. I've gone on to become one of the most watched journalists, not just in my country, I guess all over the globe on these issues. I've become a specialist, a best-selling author of 4 books on this subject. I know Islam inside out. I don't talk about what I've read in books or studied. I talk about a life experience. And I actually first come to America in 2010. I delivered a speech called A Warning to America. And that was given in New York at a Pamela Geller event. And that warning to America was something I wish someone come to my country and give me 30 years ago. So I'm glad to have this opportunity on a Christian network, speaking to Christians in the United States, to deliver them once again a warning to America. Make sure you listen, because your future depends on it. Your culture depends on it. Your very nation and your children's safety depends on it.
Tommy, we understand what you're going through, but not fully. You are going through far more aggressive than we have, and your government coming after you. That hasn't happened to us yet. How far ahead do you think the UK is from America?
Yeah, I'd say it has happened to you, and it was happening under Joe Biden.
Well, that's true.
You're starting to experience it. Imagine Joe Biden won another term. When you voted to save America, when you had your vote for Donald Trump, from our point of view, that wasn't a vote to save America. That was a vote to save Western civilization. That was a vote to save us. We only have, if I name 3 people right now who are fighting for our rights, it's Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Elon Musk. That's the 3 major people who have been fighting for Europeans' rights, for our right to speech. Because without speech, we're finished anyway. And we live in a post-free speech era in the European Union. There is no free speech. To watch J.D. Vance address the Munich conference in the way he did and lay it out to them from the most powerful nation in the world and the most powerful government in the world, for us, was inspiring. It inspired us. It inspired all of us, because it's been a lonely struggle. It's been a lonely battle over here. I've spent time in 10 prisons. As recently as last year, this May, I was released after 7 months in solitary confinement, held because I made a documentary that exposed corruption within the judiciary. The film that I made showed the weaponization of the judiciary. What we all know to be happening. It's what's happened to Donald Trump. It's what's happened to Steve Bannon. It's what's happened to Alex Jones. It's what's happened in your country to so many patriots, but it's happened across the West. It's happened to Katie Hopkins. It's happened to every single political figure who has gone against the status quo of the European Union with mass immigration or speaking out against Islam, whether it be Geert Wilders, most recently Marie Le Pen, whoever it is, Philippe de Villiers, whichever country you look at, whoever the rising star populist leader was, they have faced relentless lawfare. I have faced campaign after campaign. There is not one single moment in the last 15, 16 years since the start of my activism on the streets from the English Defence League in 2009. I have not had one period where I have not been awaiting prosecution and prison. Now, I have a trial in 2026, October, where I face 10 years in prison for challenging the fraudulent liars from the Daily Mail newspaper. So with no crime committed, but most recently, I don't know if you saw, just last month, I was acquitted of all charges in a terrorism case, and the judges ruled that the charges against me and the targeting of me was politically motivated. The judge gave a damning verdict against the police and against the state. I had a previous court case 12 months before this, where again, the judge hammered the police in their unlawful behaviour, the unlawful detention, the unlawful conditions they held me under for 6 months. For 6 months, I was banned from my own capital city. All of this was done to prevent any opposition to the pro-Hamas rallies. They fabricated a case against me. They detained me. They then prosecuted me. It cost me £53,000. I say it cost me. I'm very lucky and grateful to America and to Elon Musk, because at the time of my last imprisonment, Elon Musk watched my banned film that was viewed by 167 million people. He saw the corruption in the case. He saw that I was imprisoned for telling the truth, and he stepped in and paid my legal fees for my last 2 cases.
Wow.
Both of which I've been totally acquitted. He's agreed to pay the next legal fees for my next case, which is just lawfare. So yeah, I have faced relentless lawfare from a government who, the reality is, if I'm allowed as a journalist to give to you, the American public or the British public, the European public, the reality of the situation in our towns and cities, then it would bring humiliation on our government. Because all of the problems we talk about, for example, in 2003 in Great Britain, there were 8,800 rapes. In 2023, there were 88,000 rapes. Why has it rose that much? It literally runs perfectly in line with the open border mass immigration from Islamic nations. You can do a graph just like this for Sweden. It's exactly the same. Women are being raped across this nation. And if you're allowed to talk about who's doing it and why they're doing it, then we would all be looking to the government for their policy failures. You and the American government, Donald Trump has just stepped in. He's put a ban on many nations. He's trying to protect the American public. But my warning to America is you have had Hispanic immigration, Mexican immigration. And I've heard Americans moan about that over the years, and rightfully so, to do with many problems. But I always listened to them and just thought, wow, you don't really know what's coming. Because we have had Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Syrian, Iraqi, and for the last 8 years, that's who you've had flooding through your borders. That's who you've had. You're seeing the Somali problem now. But I think you need to really brace yourself for what's coming. It's entered. They're in the nation. I know Donald Trump's doing a good job to try and get rid of them, but you've got probably 10 million. And many of them are now from Islamic nations which wish to conquer the United States. First and foremost, part of their Islamic belief is they want to conquer the world, to implement Sharia, to enforce Sharia, to take over nations. And you are an armed nation. So I think that what you saw recently, even with the two National Guard getting shot, what you've seen coming out of the Somali problems, these are just like a little trailer to a movie. And the movie hasn't started yet. It's coming. It's coming. So many of those who are commentating right now, I see attacking Israel on the American right, and I see aligning themselves with Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, I look and think, these videos are not going to age well for you. Whether it be Qatari funded or Iranian funded, I think we can all agree that we have proxy armies in each of our nations. They've took over the universities through their funding. They've indoctrinated the next generation. They've radicalized next generation. There's an alignment from the left and the Islamists coming together. They wish to overthrow democracy and replace it, whether it be Marxism, communism, whatever their leftist idea is, but they're finding themselves coming together. They don't like each other because they hate religion and they hate non-believers. So they don't like each other, but they're aligning themselves together. But the worrying thing, which I'm going to bring this up because we have an American audience, is hearing so many Americans talking about the Muslims and Christians need to come together. You need to come to Europe. You need to come to Sweden. You need to come to Germany. You need to come to France. You need to come to 85 towns and cities across Britain where Islam and the Islamic community have raped and kidnapped and tortured our daughters. There is no Muslims and Christians together. We have Islamic ghettos. There is no assimilation. I'm from Luton Town. I've experienced it my whole life. So when I hear Americans sitting in an American city that has no Muslims telling us in Europe that we need to be friends with these people and we need to be on the side of Palestine and we know it. I know who Hamas are. I've been surrounded by that mindset my whole life. I know who they are. Hamas is ISIS. When you're surrounded, so when I'm looking at this and I speak about these issues, I get a little bit frustrated when we hear certain American commentators preaching to us about which side we need to be on. Or you see, is it Dan Blizzardjan? How do I pronounce his name? The big bloke who used to be of all the women. Now he's reading the Quran and he's on the side of Iran. His whole family from their history were
Dan Bavarian. Is that Dan Bavarian? Dan Bavarian?
Dan Bavarian. So his family were massacred in a genocide by Muslims, yeah? And he's now sitting here, for how much money I don't know, taking pictures with the Quran and trying to influence the next generation of the American public to somehow believe that Islam is our friend, that there's this nice, peaceful version of Islam somewhere. So my warning to Americans is that the problem's there now. It's there. I can't believe what you just said about CARE. Why has it taken, great move this week by Florida, but why has it taken this long? Why have CARE been allowed to operate? They are the Muslim Brotherhood. They are a terrorist organisation. They are exactly the same. They wish to enforce Islam, caliphate. They want to get to the same goals. They just have different paths of getting there. Why have they been allowed to operate and influence in such a manner in the United States of America? When everything they stand for and everything they want goes against the core principles of the Christian nation of the United States of America. But these groups have been, no one's challenged them. And that's the biggest problem, that all of these groups work together under so many different umbrellas. And they're all working for the same common cause and the same goal. And many of our governments have been asleep. Your government, my government, they plan the next 4 years. This lot, they're planning 100 years. They've been planning this for 1,400 years. So we need to really wake up And it's good to see so many Americans. I'm pretty surprised listening to the experiences you had in 2017 to understand the cancel culture and hearing the threats made against you and your church and your organization and this channel that we're talking on now about shutting you down, whether it come from Iran. That is then when they will implement lawfare. They have unlimited fun. They will tie you up. I was bankrupt for £1.5 million in my country. It's now face the same again now. So yeah, I'm grateful to have an American audience to really give them a warning, to say you really need to listen. This doesn't mean there's not some great Muslims out there as individuals. There's some lovely people. But mixing Islam and the West, you're mixing oil and water. There's no peaceful, it's not an experiment. The United States should not be an experiment. My children, your children, let's not experiment with their futures. When I say experiment, 45 countries have previously allowed Islam in as a minority. It's never stayed as a minority. It's never peacefully coexisted ever in history. It's not going to work. There's going to get a certain number. The funding comes in from Qatar, from Iran, from Saudi, wherever it's coming from. It's a campaign, and it's a worldwide domination campaign. So America will, in the coming years, find itself at the center of this battle because the enemy are inside the house. This is the most important struggle we're ever going to fight in a generation of our lives. This is our battle. The time is now. So we come together and we said, let's agree on 5 things, just a handful. Let's not look at what we disagree on. And I brought 15 personalities together. Katie Hopkins, Lawrence Fox, Cole Benjamin, Maya Tusi. You may not know these gentlemen or these ladies, but they're big players in the UK, in alternative media, or as commentators, but individually, they're all on their own. So we brought them together, and I brought them together for days, and then we worked together behind the scenes for months to come to an agreement that we have to come together for our culture. We have to come together for free speech. We have to come together against mass immigration, against LGBTQ indoctrination of our children. We have to agree to align on these values. And if we do agree on these principles, and we agree to build a movement, and if we can change the culture, we can change the politics. Let's not try and start a political party. Politicians will ride the wave whichever way it's going. They're cowards and they jump ship very quickly for whichever way they see the wind blowing. We need to make sure they see the wind blowing in the side of patriotism and nationalism and cultural identity for Britain. That's what we need to do. And we're running out of time to do it. So we brought all those people together. We sat them down. We worked on a plan, and our plan was to celebrate culture, celebrate history. We've been told in this country to be ashamed of who we are. They have demoralised us. They've took away our sense of prideness and being proud. So we all came together, and we said that at a click of a fingers now, with us 15 people under one banner, we can reach every demographic in Britain. We have more power than the BBC if we all come together, because you've got 1,000, you've got 1 million on YouTube, you've got 1 million on TikTok, I've got X, you've got this platform, you've got that platform. We can all work together. This isn't a British problem. It's not a German problem. It's not a European problem. It's a problem that faces Western civilization, for the future of Western civilization. And we need to show unity. What we wanted on this day that you're seeing those scenes, we wanted to inspire the world, inspire the public, to let them know you're not alone. We've been made to feel like we're on our own. We're a fringe voice. We're lonely at home, feeling upset, thinking that the world doesn't think like us.
Let me play a clip here. Watch this and have you respond to this, please. Here we go.
It's a very lovely, quaint notion being built up in the United States, driven by people like Tommy Robinson here.
Who's Tommy Robinson?
You know Tommy Robinson.
He seems like a fraud to me.
Well, he's not even Tommy Robinson. His name's Stephen Yaxley. It's not even his real name. He's also convicted of multiple crimes, thuggery, fraud.
I don't even know anything about him, but he doesn't seem like he's that into Britain.
This is the best they can do, and Tucker is not even aware of you?
Well, what I find funny, first of all, the name. So, yes, I used a fake name. Do you want to know why? Because I want to stay alive. Do you know there's 6 Muslims right now who are in prison doing 30 years in prison because they got to my location 2 hours late with guns, bombs and IEDs and suicide notes? I'd be dead. They got 30 years in jail. So when I started the English Defence League, as I said, I had a successful company and a successful life and was like most other people, wanted to live my life. But I needed to speak out, so I used a fake name to hide my real identity so that jihadist didn't turn up at my home. Since that time, I've had 12 government official Osman warnings. An Osman warning is a warning by the government where they sit you down, they give you a bit of paper, and it says, we cannot protect you. Our advice is to leave, and leave now. That's the advice I've had from my government, because we can't protect you. We are aware now of plans to kill you. So I've had Al-Shabaab have named me to be killed, a terrorist organisation. So I have all these different things. So how dare I change my name? How dare I try and protect my family, Piers Morgan? Do you know what I mean? But when we get on to Tucker Carlson, when he says, who is he? Tucker, I've been on his show. He spoke about me many, many times. I've shown the videos. I've spoke with him personally. His team spoke to my team just 6 months ago. So when he's sitting there saying, who is this guy? And then he has the audacity to call me a fraud when he's pretending he don't know who he is. So what's happened with Tucker? Nothing's happened with me, but Tucker, in that show he's talking to there, talked about the wonderful Pakistani taxi drivers in the UK. That's the Pakistani taxi drivers who have ferried all our young girls around to be raped and drugged. That's been the operation of all of these gangs, Pakistani taxi drivers. Piers come here and said, there's no problems here. Nothing's happening here. We have 40,000 British Muslims on a terror watch list. 3,000 of them are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with £9 billion a year. How dare Tucker Carlson come and sit in my country and tell me there's nothing going on here? We had 26 children blown to pieces up in Manchester. We had a soldier beheaded. We had the Westminster Bridge attack. We've had attack after attack after attack of jihad. People being stabbed in the neck while they're having their dinner by Muslims screaming Allah Akbar. And I've got the audacity of Tucker Carlson coming into our country saying there's no problems here in Great Britain. Really? Tell that to the mums and dads of all the raped kids, Tucker. Tell that to all the people who are being punished in jail. Tell that to the prison system that's been totally taken over by Islamic radical gangs, Tucker. And you're going to experience it all in America. So none of these things are going to age well for people like Tucker Carlson. I see him out there now trying to flog houses in Qatar, isn't he? But I'd love to have my own sit down with Tucker Carlson, see actually what he does know, rather than him sitting there pretending what he doesn't know. Because I know he knows who I am. But the reason for that show there, and I'm sorry for my passion coming over it, is Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan was in my documentary Silence that had 167 million views. I exposed him as the fraud charlatan that he is. I exposed him as lying about a child, causing the child to try and kill himself. So Piers is all really unhappy. He still sits and tries to say I went to jail for lying, but he doesn't wash. 67 million people watched my film. They know I didn't lie. They know I told the truth. Piers has no trust from the public. He's a charlatan. He's been begging me to get on his show, which I will go on his show, and I will humiliate him like I did last time. Go and find the programme of me and Piers Morgan speaking last time. It was Piers episode of Good Morning Britain.
Here's one more clip. Look at this one.
Have you felt threatened walking around?
No, not at all. Cool. Yeah, who's going to do anything? Pakistanis are all super nice to me, and the whites are all kind of craven and sad. No, you're totally safe here, man.
Yeah, totally safe here. Yet good grief, probably 15 years ago, showing the pictures of women, beautiful blonde-haired women, bloodied and beat up, their faces covered in blood because they were getting into taxi cabs. And I think if I remember correctly from Front Page Mag, they were running articles over there quoting judges in your part of the world, judges saying, women unite, you might want to be careful getting into the cabs of Middle Eastern men, right?
Not just that. Just in the last 3 days, we've had a 15-year-old dragged in Leamington Spa, dragged in by 2 Afghanis in a hotel and raped. We've had 4 Muslims in another town who have gang raped a girl. We've had a mother and her 3 children burned alive by another Muslim. This is just in the last 2 days. So while he says you're all safe, it's a liberty, really, him coming into our country and treating the public like such fools. The difference is that might have washed 4 years ago or 5 years ago when we were censored and deplatformed. Well, we're back. We're back louder than ever. And we've built a massive, massive movement. And that movement's going nowhere. So Piers will be left standing. People will be looking at Piers knowing he's a fraud, knowing that. And the same with Tucker Carlson. Unfortunately for Tucker had the world at his feet. He shows rather than having the world at his feet, he took £15 million of some Pakistani Iranian, £15 million to build his media empire. Which
is that Omid Malik or whatever his name is?
Omid Malik. Which I'm not being funny. What did he need £15 million for? Because all he does is sit and interview people one-on-one. I do that. My team costs us relatively very small budget. What does he need £15 million off him for? And since taking the money off him, Pakistanis are great. We need to be on Iran's side. Hates Israel.
Didn't he also say, well, I think Hamas is like a political organization. Didn't he say something to that effect? We played that clip before, right, guys?
It wouldn't surprise me at all. But there's a trend here. It's not just Tucker. There's a trend coming. And basically, what I align it with, if we look at each person, it's hatred of Jews and siding with this side. And that's basically it. That's how I see it. Yeah, I don't even see it as, because if you're looking at Israel, if it was about Israel, well, Hamas, if you call Hamas a political organisation, one of the articles on their manifesto says the final day of judgment does not come until every Jew is dead. That's on their manifesto. Not every Zionist, not every Israeli, every Jew is dead. So the argument's just done at that point. They're not a political organisation. They're a terrorist, bloodthirsty jihad. They are ISIS. They're ISIS. They're Boko Haram. They're all the same.
In fact, here's the clip. Here's the clip of Tucker saying this. And of course, I know this because you just cited their charter. If you read the charter of Hamas, I just released a book on Hamas. We've been covering them. I did 11 one-hour TV shows in my investigation on Hamas back in 2019. Yeah, here's
I wish I'd have heard, Brannon, I'm going to tell honestly, because, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole on you next.
we can send you, our team can send you all kinds of stuff free of charge. We have so much research. But here's Tucker. Here's Tucker.
No one can plausibly claim that a Christian family are in Hamas. So, like, what? Tell me, you can't claim that they're in Hamas while simultaneously claiming that Hamas is, group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly. Which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization, but whatever it is, they're telling us constantly they're Al Qaeda. So it can't also be true that Christians are a member of Al Qaeda. Sorry.
Yeah. So I guess Hamas is just a political organization, Tommy.
I've never seen that, man. He is just, what's he done? What's happened with him? Like, what's happened? It's mental. I used to love Tucker Carlson. I honestly thought he was brilliant. But the thing is now, people can get things wrong. People can have an opinion. He just lies. To sit like that, pretending he didn't know who I was. It's just a lie. You're just lying to the public. You're lying. You're lying. Why would I believe one word you say after this?
It's really sad too. Your king, your king, King Charles, he just seems to be absolutely in love with Islam.
He loves his hubba. I wouldn't be surprised if he is a Muslim. I'm telling you.
Well, I was going to ask you that. That was my next question. Do you think he has converted to Islam?
I think he secretly may have. And that may sound outlandish to some of your people, but if you go down that rabbit hole, trust me, you'll find stuff to back it up.